Wondering what life is really like on Canada's wild and crazy West Coast? This podcast is all about the people, the places, and Vancouver Island time. Together, we'll explore this island paradise, a combination of ocean, city, and country living. We'll meet the fabulous locals such as the Fudge Fairy and the Chicken Lady, who have chosen Victoria and Vancouver Island as their home. And we'll learn what makes this place unique and special to those who live here. And now, your host of Vancouver Island Time, Jane Johnston.
Hi everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Comox and host of Vancouver Island Time. I'm here with Kyrle Symons of
Prisym Renewable Developments.
And we're going to be talking about the Courtenay Comox area, which is in sort of central Vancouver Island.
Yep.
And we are actually at the Juan de Fuca Rec Center, or West Shore Recreation Center now. So there's going to be people coming around behind us, so just ignore them and focus on the content. So, Kyrle, you originally were from Victoria, right?
Yes, I was born in Abbotsford, but we moved to Victoria when I was 2. I grew up in the West Shore area by Colwood, then we moved to Oak Bay when I was 12.
And how did you end up in Comox?
Well, I was an air cadet when I was a young kid, and that pushed me into a military career. I moved all around the country, and I ended up getting a posting to Comox, flying on the Aurora, and spent a 4-year posting there before getting out of the military and doing what I'm doing now.
So are you actually Comox or Courtenay? I'm
in Courtenay. We could call it the Comox Valley. I've never been right into the town of Comox.
So what do you think about living there? Why, I was there, I think, 20 years ago now. How has it changed in the past 20 years?
Oh, goodness. Well, I wasn't there 20 years ago. It's fantastic. I mean, if I'm going to compare it to Victoria, it's nice because you get all of the outdoor elements. I remember traveling out to Mount Washington, and, you know, we've got the city here, and there's some outdoor stuff, but really the Comox Valley, if you're an outdoorsy person, that's the great heart of it. And Cumberland being a giant mecca for mountain biking, hiking, that whole area is just fantastic for outdoor activity.
So Mount Washington is one of the big ski hills on Vancouver Island, and actually I think it kind of rivals what we have in Quebec, don't you? You haven't been to Quebec?
Well, I've been to Mont Tremblant one time, but it didn't last long. I broke my wrist on the first day.
But it's a challenging hill.
It's a challenging hill. It's wonderful. I've spent a lot of years there. I've had 4 years of seasons passes, so it's been my home for snowboarding.
So when does the season go from until?
Pretty much dependent on the year, but you'd be looking at end of November, beginning of December, hopefully all the way up until, some snow up until Father's Day. We've gotten, it's been hit or miss on those days, but you're looking at getting into March, and then the hope that you can go with that on that day.
Cool. So what else is there to do? One of the things I guess people tell me about living on Vancouver Island is you can go from kayaking or maybe diving to skiing in one day.
That's very true. I've done a lot of that where I would be snowboarding and you can go for a golf game. There's a lot of falls going by the rivers and Barber's Hole. If you like that freshwater swimming, there's a lot of it around. I would say again, the adventure, the parks, it's all there.
Is there tubing in the summer?
Down the Puntledge River, yes. So you start up at the fish hatchery and head all the way down, and you're probably looking at a 40-minute tube.
Okay, so you have kind of a different perspective of this area because you operate a drone company, right?
I do.
And so what are exciting places for people to go? Let's say you've mentioned a few of these spots. What are the top 3 or 5 places to go if you're going to go up to Courtenay Comox?
Ooh, okay. One of my favorites, a lot of people like to do an exercise, they call it the stairs at Goose Spit. So it's a spit of land that's surrounded by the water there. It's absolutely beautiful. Seal Bay Park is another good one if you're wanting a park adventure. And oh boy, there's so much. I'm kind of drawing a blank.
What about for mountain biking?
Cumberland, absolutely Cumberland, and Forbidden Plateau. So Forbidden Plateau used to be an old ski resort that ended up being taken down, but that's another great challenging mountain biking area.
What's the population? Because I know a lot of people from Victoria do retire up there, and I know that there are people from Calgary also who are moving to Courtenay, Comox area. Is it primarily retirement, or is it a mixture? Because you have military there as well, right?
It's a pretty good mix. I'd say the population is increasing, but around the 40,000 mark. And there's actually a very big growing. I wouldn't call it nightlife, but bar scene. So we've seen 4 breweries pop up in the last few years, which has been really neat. So that's really building in Comox and Courtenay and Cumberland as well.
And what sort of other industries are up there? So you have military, you now have your breweries, you have tourism. You
have solar energy. So that's a big part. That's what this is. We'll talk about that later. But there's a lot of logging that's going on, and you can see that in the cut blocks. I'm not sure how. It's not really evident too much in the Comox Valley. It's kind of as you get more north around Campbell River, that'd be happening a lot more. But that's kind of where we'd be leading to the industry side. I'd say there's a fair bit of industry over towards Campbell River, which is north of Courtenay. Okay, and then what about places to eat there?
Ooh.
Atlas Locals. The Prime Chop House.
What does Atlas serve?
Atlas, everything. Breakfast. They have an incredible menu, actually breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're a big variety, but they're a big variety of delicious. I'd say another one that's my favorite right on 5th Street is Nikki Ramen. So there's a couple really good ones if you're into the noodles and pho. Pho 50 Pho is another, but I'm a big noodles guy.
So for a foodie, if they were going up there, they would be happy with the choices that they could pick from?
You'd be impressed, yep. All the way from sushi to American to pizza to all of it, yeah.
And do you get a lot of international people up there who are going back and forth to the ski hill?
You do, and actually you get a fair bit of international going to North Island College. So North Island College seems to do a really good job of attracting all kinds of people from around the world, which is really neat to see.
Yeah. I didn't even know that. So, and what do they teach there?
So they have a business degree and nursing, and then a really strong trades area with electrical, carpentry, etc.
So I understand your house is on the market. What's the real estate market doing up there?
I think at the moment, so it was doing really, really strongly this last year. I think we're kind of seeing an area where it's still on a bit of the up, but might be softening a little bit.
So are you finding people are coming from Up Island, or are you, where are the viewings coming from of people seeking to buy homes there?
I'd say a lot of what I've actually seen based on what I do for work has been Vancouverites coming to the Comox Valley. That's been a big trend I've noticed. There's a lot more people who are saying they're new to the island, and I've met a good dozen of them in the last month.
And is there an airport there?
There is. It's the Comox International.
Comox International. So here there's a direct flight out of there, right, to other cities like Vancouver, Calgary?
Calgary for sure. It's a really nice quick hop to Calgary. And they've opened a number of others. I don't remember if there's a direct to Mexico, but it's kind of neat to see some actual real neat ones direct from Comox to neat destinations.
Okay, so do you ever go off the island? Because I was having a discussion with another client, and she was saying she's moved here from Britain a number of years ago, and then the East Coast. But she was saying she was surprised that people rarely leave the island. Do you find that?
I would say so. The being that we have the ferries here, it makes things a little harder, and you have everything you want. If you come to the island and you're kind of expecting the Vancouver Island lifestyle, there's not really too much of a reason to go unless you have family somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why I call it Vancouver Island time. Okay, so what about the social scene?
It's growing. We see that it's an affordable place to live, and that's why we're seeing we're seeing a lot more people come to the valley.
And so for tourism, you have summer and winter, because you have sort of two different, you have beaches as well as mountain biking, and then in the winter you have the skiing. But is there anything else? Fishing?
Yes, actually, that's very true. Campbell River has been known for a lot of the fishing, and that goes all the way down along the island. We actually took my father on a fishing charter this last August, so that was really fun for some salmon fishing. So it is great fishing.
And where are you doing that? Is that in a river or out in the ocean?
We went out of the ocean. We went right out of the Comox Marina. You can do fishing on the lakes as well. And I'm sure on the rivers. I'm not a huge avid fisherman myself, but I do know it's a good place to fish.
And scuba diving, is there a shop up there?
There's a few. There are a few shops, and I do remember I used to scuba dive as a kid. I kind of got out of it, and it's one of these things I wish I could do again. We've got a number of wrecks out there, and we're pretty close. You could travel to Tofino as well, and there's good diving.
How long does it take to get to Tofino from Courtenay Comox?
We're probably looking at an hour 45 to 2 hours. So it's not a quick hop, but it's still quite local.
And that's like directly across the island, right? Through Port Alberni?
Exactly, yep.
So, and that's quite beautiful. It's one of the best places to hang out in the summer, too.
And surf. If you're a surfer and you want to get into those waves, it is incredible. Yeah.
As a person in the solar industry, do you find there's a lot of sun up there? Because we are in a little bit of a pocket here in Victoria with limited more sunshine probably than like Vancouver and other places. What's the weather like there?
Well, Victoria is really neat. Victoria is in this neat little pocket that has a very fantastic we'll call it solar potential, and it's neat because as you go from Victoria up the inland side up to the Comox Valley, you see similar things with solar, and the Comox Valley is not maybe as great as Victoria, but it's certainly fantastic, and solar energy is a really great resource here. It's perceived to be not very good because we have a lot of cloud and rain, and that it is the case in the wintertime, but when we look at it from a yearly perspective, with net metering with BC Hydro, you collect energy over the whole year. So if you look at holistically, it's a fantastic resource.
Okay, we're going to get into more detail with that in a moment, but stay tuned for this message and we'll be back. Kyrle is going to talk to us about his solar energy company and why you might want to switch to solar for your house and your electric car here in Vancouver Island.
Vancouver Island Time is brought to you by the Briar Hill Group at RE/MAX Comox in Victoria, where we bring local expertise and global presence to your property.
Hi, everybody. It's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at RE/MAX Comox, and I'm back with Kyrle Symons, and your company is?
Prisym Renewable Developments.
So you have been in business for how long?
Since the end of 2016.
Okay, and actually I met you previously through Krista Dean, who was kind of selling your business down here.
Yes, she's been a wonderful advocate for solar energy and working with us.
So she has a really green perspective of how people should be living, and I appreciate that. What's the process of getting your house assessed for solar energy?
Well, step one, having an interest in sustainability and that want to go green. It's kind of twofold. The want to go green and then wanting to save on your utility bills. So as soon as you have those two, you can contact us and we can provide a free estimate. What that ends up really involving is when we get into the estimate process, we look at the house remotely. We're looking for rotation or orientation to south, pitch of the roof, and how many trees are in the area. So if all of those kind of check boxes are looking pretty reasonable, then you're likely a very good candidate for solar. And then we get into the weeds of what are your goals? How much solar do you want in your house, and what does your utility bill look like? What are we offsetting?
So do you want something with a south-facing roof, or does it matter? So in our case, it's east-west.
Yes, if your roof is facing south to southwest to southeast, anywhere kind of in that general direction, you're going to be pretty good for solar.
Do you have a sort of solar energy type panel that can rotate with the sun?
We do. There's been a lot of technology that has looked at what they call trackers, 2 or 4 axis trackers. It's kind of As solar panels have gotten more efficient and more cost-effective, the use of trackers, however, has been less ideal. If you can throw a few more solar panels on there, you're getting rid of the problems with moving parts and maintenance.
How easy is it to install a solar system into someone's house? So, for instance, for us, or maybe the typical home, there's a 200 amp panel, and then what else do you need?
Attic space is great if we can get into the attic space to work with the wiring and then figure out a way to get to the panel. Every house is its own puzzle, so making its way, the wires from the roof to your panel, we have to figure that out.
Okay, and then they have to put something, I guess, close to where their panel is, the batteries to store the energy?
Not necessarily batteries. If you're grid tied, you're not necessarily looking at battery backup. If you're looking at batteries, then that ends up being, you may be impacted by outages. If you're not really impacted by outages, we may not be looking at batteries. BC Hydro has their net meter program, which allows you to produce energy. What you're essentially doing is giving it to the grid, giving it to all of your neighbors, and getting a credit for that energy for later use.
Okay, and then so with the advent of electric vehicles, I'm thinking now that will have a huge impact on your industry.
I think it will. People are wanting to provide clean power for those electric vehicles. And of course, if you're driving an electric vehicle, how it's fueled ends up being a lot of what the carbon offset really means. If you buy an electric vehicle, but it's fueled by a coal source, even if it's electricity, you're not necessarily improving your situation. So it's good to have solar.
Yeah, and I find actually because of when we're drawing the energy from our home, I don't have solar yet, but when we're drawing the energy from our home, I'm finding that it's so cheap because we're drawing it during the evening, I guess, and then I haven't actually even noticed a change in my bill.
You won't necessarily. If you're doing local driving, we've done a couple calculations, and really anywhere from 3 to 6 solar panels is all you really need to accommodate that extra usage, and that's actually, it's quite a small amount, and the nice part about that is it's clean energy.
So what is the, let's say I want to put in 3 to 6 solar panels on my roof. I'm not going to tie you to a number, but how long does it take to recoup the investment?
Well, there's a couple factors at play. How much energy are you consuming? The more you're consuming, the more you're going to be in the second tier, which is more expensive power. So it's actually good for you to be on more electricity because the solar energy is going to take off from the top first. When we're looking at payback period, it also is important to consider economies of scale. If you install a very small number of panels, there's going to be some base costs associated that it may not be effective to just install 3 solar panels, for example. But as soon as you kind of start getting into maybe 9, 10, 15, you're starting to get into those economies of scale areas. And if you have high usage combined with, say, for example, a 20 panel array, you start to really get good returns on your break-even points, or what if you're looking at it from an investment, or maybe another really good metric is a locked-in cost for your energy. If your energy is with BC Hydro at a tier 2 rate of, call it 14 cents, and we can lock you in at 10 over a 25-year period, it does make sense. Absolutely.
So it makes sense for the amount of time you're going to be within the home.
Absolutely, and it's the same thing, you're purchasing an asset, it's going to be going on your roof, and a lot of when we're looking at the resale value in a house, it's potentially a good resale feature as well.
What sort of maintenance do people need to do on these?
Pretty minimal. For the most part, if your panels are getting dirty, we don't even necessarily say it's important to clean them, because the nice thing about our climate here is that we get a lot of rain. So each season you kind of get a refresh. Rather than spending money on maintenance cleaning, if you install a couple more solar panels and not worry about that, you're really you're alleviating all of the issues of maintenance. It's really just cleaning.
And do people use them for other things like heating their pools and stuff like that?
They do. A lot of the times, similar to the electric vehicle, if you're looking to install an appliance, say a pool, it's that offset you're looking to achieve. So when you're doing that, say you install a pool with a pool heater, we can identify what's that extra cost and how much solar do we need to get rid of that extra.
So I have a question. An EnerGuide rating is where somebody looks at the efficiency of a house. They look at whether or not the windows are sealed properly and any sort of drafts. They're measuring that, and they look at the source of energy. Does installing solar energy in a house affect the EnerGuide rating?
It absolutely does. That brings solar. The EnerGuide rating is how low energy you're using. So on a amount of energy usage for your home. So solar energy takes that off all the way down to 0, and then once you have a 0 rating, they have a little asterisk there that says, okay, now we're producing more energy. Speaking on the EnerGuide rating system, I would also throw in that I am a certified energy advisor as of this last year. So not only do I specialize in solar energy, we now offer services to do home energy efficiency improvements. Okay,
so who is your ideal client?
My ideal client, I suppose...
not a first-time home buyer?
Well, you know what? Actually, that is not necessarily the case, because we've been doing some studies, and if you can get more solar energy system into your mortgage on a renewal date or when you first get your property, what we're finding is that from a return on investment perspective, or that yield, we're often able to see a better return from solar. So in essence, you can get a solar energy system on your house for free.
So you probably want to deal with builders.
I do. Builders are a big client of mine, also, but realtors as well, and existing homeowners. I would say existing homeowners are the biggest one right now.
Okay, and in any part of the island?
Any part of the island. Given that I've lived in Victoria and continue to see family here, we're expanding to Victoria. So we've opened up a showroom in the Comox Valley, and as that stabilizes, we're looking at moving down island as well here.
Okay, so tell us about sun exposure. We were talking in the other excerpt, that southern Vancouver Island has kind of a unique pocket because we don't get as much rain as, say, Vancouver. Is there an ideal area to live in or on Vancouver Island that would produce more sun than elsewhere?
Victoria, I would say, and the inland coast, going up the island. Really, those are shown to be good solar potential areas. However, it's not so much about a specific area on Vancouver Island, but it's more your lot, your house's specific characteristics in relationship to where the trees are and how your house faces south.
Okay, so you're talking all the way up from Victoria to Campbell River?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then how do people get in touch with you?
You can visit our website, prisym.ca, Prisym, or you can phone me at 250-702-4674.
If you want more information about the Comox Valley and Prisym Energy, contact Kyrle. If you want more information about real estate in Victoria, contact me. I'm Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Mosin and host of Vancouver Island Time. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Don't forget to watch us or listen to us at VancouverIslandTime.com. Bye.
Welcome to the neighborhood. We hope you have had some insight into West Coast living. If you know of someone or some place that should be highlighted in our podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Please go to VancouverIslandTime.com and click on our Connect button. See you next week on Vancouver Island Time with Jane Johnston.